Codex 11, Supernatural Case Files, Case File 001, The Widow's Gift, recorded by Emma Seher. Classification: Origin Story, Content Warning. This recording contains descriptions of violence, death, and psychological trauma.
My name is Emma Seher, and 3 weeks ago, I didn't believe in supernatural abilities. Now I run an underground network protecting people who have them. This is the recording I'm making for the protection network, so other gifted people know they're not alone, and so they understand what we're capable of when we stop running and start fighting back. What you're about to hear is the true account of the day I inherited my mother's gift, discovered she'd been murdered, and had 8 hours to stop a man who'd been hunting my family for 4 generations. This is what happened in the 8 hours that changed everything. This is my origin story. And if you're listening to this because you've discovered abilities you don't understand, you're not crazy. You're just like me. Chapter 1: The Touch. My name is Emma Seher, and I'm recording this 3 weeks after the worst and, most important, 8 hours of my life. Detective Santos says other people need to hear this. People like me, who are just discovering what they can do. People who think they're losing their minds. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if I'm safe yet. I don't know if any of us are. But I know that what happened on October 25th needs to be documented. Because if Marcus Delacroix's people come for me, someone needs to know how this started. So here it is. The day my mother's gift became mine. The day I met David Morrison and saw him die. This is what happened. I'd always prided myself on being practical, logical, the kind of person who believed in data over instinct, science over superstition, which made the fact that I was hiding in a coffee shop that afternoon, avoiding my own life, particularly irritating. 3 days. It had been 3 days since I'd buried my mother, and already the concerned calls were piling up. My boss at Morrison Marketing wanted to know when I'd be back from bereavement leave. My college roommate had left 4 voicemails, each one more aggressively cheerful than the last. Even my landlord in Chicago had texted, asking if I needed help subletting my apartment. Everyone wanted to know my plan. The problem was, I didn't have one. Step 1: bury mother. Step 2. Step 3: profit. I was really nailing this whole adulting thing. I sat in the corner booth of Cafe Luna, staring at my laptop screen, cursor blinking mockingly in an empty email draft. "Hi, Tom," I'd written. "Thank you for your patience during this difficult time." That was as far as I'd gotten in the last hour. How exactly do you tell your boss that you can't focus on marketing campaigns because your mother's house still smells like the lavender soap she used, and you keep expecting her to walk through the door asking if you want tea? Now, recording this 3 weeks later, I wish that had been my biggest problem. I wish I could go back to that version of myself and warn her. Emma, in exactly 17 minutes, everything you think you know about reality is going to shatter. And you're going to wish you'd paid more attention to Mom's old-world nonsense. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The afternoon crowd at Cafe Luna was thin. A few college students, an elderly man reading a newspaper, a woman with a crying baby. I'd chosen the corner table specifically because it was far from the counter, far from people. I'd even kept my jacket on despite the cafe's warmth, a barrier between myself and the world. Nothing says I'm totally fine like aggressively avoiding human contact in a public space. "Excuse me." I looked up to find a man about my age standing beside my table, holding a steaming coffee mug. He had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the sort of genuinely concerned expression that made him instantly trustworthy. Which, in my current state of mind, made me immediately suspicious. "I'm sorry to bother you," he continued, "but you left this at the counter." He gestured to my laptop bag. "I'm David. I help out here sometimes when my friend's short-staffed. You looked like you were in your own world, so I thought I'd bring it over." My cheeks flushed. I didn't remember leaving anything at the counter, but then again, I barely remembered ordering my coffee. Great. Now I'm the tragic figure who can't even handle basic coffee shop logistics. Thank you. That's very... I reached for the bag at the same time he leaned forward to set it down. Our hands brushed. The world exploded. Even now, 3 weeks later, I can close my eyes and see it perfectly. Sometimes I wake up seeing it. The vision is burned into my brain like a brand. Underground parking garage. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. David stumbling backward, eyes wide with shock. Silver blade catching the harsh light. Red spreading across white shirt. Digital clock on the concrete wall. 11:47 p.m. The images kept coming, relentless and vivid. David's face, twisted in pain, a figure in dark clothing standing over him, the metallic smell of blood, the echo of footsteps disappearing into shadow. I gasped, my chair scraping backward so violently it toppled over. Coffee splashed across my laptop keyboard as my mug hit the table. The images wouldn't stop. They were still there, playing on loop behind my eyes like some sick movie I couldn't pause. Whoa, hey, are you okay? David was at my side instantly, reaching for my arm. Don't touch me. The words came out sharper than I intended. I scrambled away from him, my back hitting the cafe's front window. Every eye in the place was on me now. The woman with the baby had stopped bouncing her child. The elderly man had lowered his newspaper. Even the barista behind the counter was staring. Perfect. Nothing draws less attention than screaming at helpful strangers and creating a one-woman disaster zone. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you, David said, his hands raised in a placating gesture. You just looked like you might faint for a second there. Faint. Right. Because that was a normal explanation for what had just happened. I pressed my palms against the cool glass behind me, trying to ground myself. The vision was already starting to fade around the edges, the way dreams did in the first moments of waking. But David's face, the shock, the pain, the clock reading 11:47, those details remained crystal clear. I know what you're thinking right now, listening to this. You're thinking, grief does strange things to people. Stress, sleep deprivation, perfectly reasonable explanations for hallucinations. That's what I thought too. I was wrong. I'm fine, I managed, though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. I need some air. I pushed past him toward the door, leaving my spilled coffee and wet laptop behind. And my dignity. Can't forget about abandoning that too. The October air hit me like a slap, sharp and clean after the cafe's warmth. I leaned against the brick wall beside the entrance, willing my hands to stop shaking. This isn't real, I told myself. Grief does things to people. Stress. You haven't been sleeping. Obviously, you're now having vivid hallucinations about coffee shop employees getting murdered. Perfectly normal Tuesday afternoon activity. But even as I tried to rationalize it away, my mother's voice echoed in my memory. Not from the hospital, weak and fading, but from years ago. I must have been 7 or 8, crying over a nightmare about our neighbor's dog getting hit by a car. The women in our family see things sometimes, Emma, she'd whispered, stroking my hair. Dreams that come true. Feelings about people. It's nothing to be afraid of. I'd forgotten about that conversation until that moment. I'd chalked up my childhood premonitions to coincidence and an overactive imagination. My mother had certainly never brought it up again, especially not after I started studying business and made it clear I had no patience for what I called old world nonsense. Turns out the nonsense might be hereditary. Lucky me. 3 weeks ago, I didn't know my mother had been murdered. I didn't know I'd inherited her gift. I didn't know that Marcus Delacroix had been waiting for this exact moment, for the gift to pass to me. All I knew was that I'd just seen a stranger's death, and I had no idea what to do about it. The cafe door chimed behind me. David emerged, my laptop bag in one hand and a stack of napkins in the other. "I thought you might want this," he said, offering the bag. "And I got some napkins in case the coffee damaged anything." I stared at him. At his kind face, his concerned expression, the way he held himself. Confident, but not imposing. In 8 hours, someone was going to kill him. I didn't know then that the vision was bait, that Marcus had been planning David's death specifically to draw me out. I didn't know that every move I made to save him would be anticipated, countered, used against me. All I knew was that I couldn't let this stranger die. "You can't go to any parking garages tonight," I blurted out. David blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Parking garages, underground ones especially. Just don't. Not tonight." He studied my face for a long moment. "Okay," he said slowly. "Any particular reason why?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. "How did you tell a complete stranger that you'd just seen his death?" "Hi, nice to meet you. By the way, you're going to be brutally murdered in about 8 hours. Hope your day improves." That you'd inherited some kind of supernatural gift you didn't understand from a mother who'd spent years hiding it. "Sorry, Mom. Turns out your old world nonsense wasn't so nonsensical after all. Thanks for the heads up." "My mother always said to trust your instincts," I said finally. "And right now, my instincts are screaming that parking garages are dangerous for you tonight." It wasn't exactly a lie. David tilted his head, considering. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman." "Was," I corrected quietly. "She died 3 days ago." Something shifted in David's expression, understanding maybe, or sympathy. "I'm sorry for your loss. That must be incredibly difficult." The kindness in his voice almost undid me. I felt tears threatening for the first time since the funeral, and I blinked them back furiously. I didn't cry. I solved problems. I made plans. I did not fall apart in front of strangers who were going to die because I was too much of a coward to deliver a proper death warning. Really nailing this whole functional human being thing today. "Look," I said, taking a deep breath. "I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think someone is going to try to hurt you tonight. At 11:47 p.m., in an underground parking garage." David's eyebrows rose. "That's very specific." "I know how it sounds. I know you don't know me, and I probably seem like I'm having some kind of breakdown." "Are you?" The question caught me off guard. "Am I what? Having a breakdown?" I considered this. "Honestly? Maybe, probably. But that doesn't mean I'm wrong about you getting stabbed." God, listening to myself say that now, so certain, so desperate to save him, I want to reach back through time and shake myself. Tell myself to run, to get as far away from David Morrison as possible, because getting close to me puts a target on your back. But I can't. And even if I could, I don't think I would. Because David saved me too, in ways I didn't understand yet. David was quiet for a moment, studying my face. Finally, he said, "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Seher." "Well, Emma Seher, I'm David Morrison, and while I'm not entirely sure what to make of your parking garage warning, I can tell you're genuinely concerned. So how about this? I'll make you a deal. I'll avoid underground parking garages tonight if you'll let me buy you a new coffee to replace the one you spilled." "You don't understand." "I understand that you just lost your mother and you're worried about a stranger's safety. That tells me you're a good person who's been through something terrible. It also tells me you probably shouldn't be alone right now." I wanted to argue, but the truth was, I had been alone. For 3 days, I'd been rattling around my mother's house like a ghost, avoiding phone calls and pretending I had any idea what to do next. The thought of returning to that empty silence made my chest tight. "One coffee," I said, "but not here. Somewhere else. Because I've thoroughly traumatized this establishment's customer base for one day." "Fair enough." David smiled, and for a moment I could almost forget about the vision of his death. "I know a place." That smile. I can still see it. I've replayed that moment 100 times, wondering if I made the right choice. If I'd just let him walk away, would he have been safer? But Marcus would have found another way. He always does. That's what I understand now. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in Rosie's Diner, a place that looked like it hadn't updated its decor since 1975 and was proud of it. I cradled a fresh cup of coffee between my hands, grateful for the warmth and the normalcy of red vinyl booths and checkered floors. "So," David said, settling across from me with his own coffee. "Digital humanities grad student by day, part-time security guard by night. I spend my days digitizing 18th century folklore manuscripts and my evenings watching empty office buildings. Living the dream." He took a sip. "What about you? Besides the whole prophetic parking garage thing." I almost smiled at that. Prophetic parking garage thing. Well, that's one way to put it. Marketing consultant. Or I was, anyway. I'm supposed to be on bereavement leave, but honestly, I have no idea if I'm going back. "Chicago? How did you—" "You mentioned your landlord texting about subletting. Small towns don't usually have landlords." David took a sip of his coffee. "What brought you back here?" "My mother." The words came out heavier than I intended. Someone had to handle everything. The house, the arrangements. I'm an only child. So lucky me. Won the genetic lottery on that one. "I'm sorry. That's a lot to deal with alone." I shrugged, uncomfortable with the sympathy. "It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. If by fine you mean having supernatural visions about nice strangers getting murdered." "Totally fine." David raised an eyebrow. "You know, for someone who's fine, you seem awfully worried about my immediate future." "Okay, he's got me there." I stared down at my coffee, watching the cream swirl in lazy patterns. How much could I tell him without sounding completely insane? How much should I tell him? I didn't know then that honesty was the only option, that half-truths and evasions would get us both killed. I was still trying to be normal, trying to pretend this wasn't my life now. "My mother used to have feelings about things," I said slowly. "Hunches. They were usually right. I guess I inherited some of that." "And your hunch is telling you I'm in danger?" "My hunch is telling me that if you go anywhere near an underground parking garage tonight, specifically at 11:47 p.m., someone is going to stab you with what looked like a silver knife." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Well, there goes any pretense of subtlety. David set down his coffee mug carefully. "That's extremely specific for a hunch." "I know how it sounds." "Do you?" "Because it sounds like you either have some very detailed inside information about a planned crime, or—" He trailed off, studying my face. "Or I'm crazy." "Yeah, I know." I met his eyes. I'm leaning toward the crazy option myself. "But David, what if I'm not? What if there's even a chance I'm right? Is it really worth the risk?" The silence stretched between us. Outside, the afternoon was shifting toward evening, the sky taking on that golden quality that made October feel both beautiful and melancholy. I could hear the diner's other patrons, an elderly couple sharing pie, a trucker at the counter reading a newspaper, the cook humming something off-key in the kitchen. Normal people, living normal lives, not sitting in diners trying to convince strangers that they'd had supernatural visions of murder. "You said 11:47, David said finally. Yes. Very specific time. There was a clock on the wall, digital, 11:47 p.m. And you saw this. How? This was it. The moment where I either told the truth and watched him walk away or lied and failed to properly warn him. Great choices, Emma. Really covering all the bases here. When our hands touched, I said quietly. In the cafe, I saw it happen like I was watching a movie. You in an underground parking garage. Someone attacking you. It was so real I could smell the motor oil and hear your voice echo off the concrete. David was quiet for a long moment. Then, has this happened before? The seeing things? Not like this. When I was little, sometimes I'd dream about things before they happened. Small things. My teacher getting sick. My neighbor's cat having kittens. My mother said it ran in the family, but I thought it was just coincidence. My hands tightened around my mug. She died suddenly. Heart attack, they said. But now I'm wondering, you think she saw her own death? I think she saw something. My voice was barely above a whisper. She was scared the last few weeks. Jumpy. She kept checking the locks, asking me if I'd noticed anyone watching the house. I thought it was just old age paranoia. And now? Now I'm thinking maybe the women in my family don't die of natural causes as often as we'd like to believe. She didn't. My mother didn't die of natural causes. Marcus Delacroix murdered her with an air embolism, made it look like a heart attack, and waited for me to inherit her gift so he could hunt me too. But I didn't know that yet. I just had the terrible, growing certainty that I was next. The words hung in the air between us. I couldn't believe I'd said them out loud. Couldn't believe I was sitting in a diner confessing to supernatural visions and family conspiracies to a man I'd met an hour ago. This is what rock bottom looks like, apparently. Having a psychic breakdown in front of a stranger while consuming mediocre coffee. Emma, David said carefully, if what you're saying is true, if you really did see my death, then someone is planning to murder me tonight. That's not just supernatural. That's criminal. We should call the police. And tell them what? That I had a vision? That I can predict the future by touching people? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. They'll think I'm having a grief-induced psychotic break, which, let's be honest, might be exactly what's happening. But what if it's not? The question stopped me cold. What if it wasn't? What if my mother's gift, their family's gift, was real? What if I'd actually seen David's death, and I was the only one who could prevent it? What if I'm not crazy? What if I'm just incredibly unlucky? Then, I said, meeting his eyes, we figure out how to keep you alive until midnight. David stared at me for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Okay, I'm calling in sick to my evening job. You have an evening job? Security guard at Morrison Office Complex. Night shift. David's fingers paused over his phone screen. The building has an underground parking garage. My blood turned to ice. What time does your shift start? 11:30. We stared at each other across the scratched Formica table. Outside, the sun was sinking lower, and I could swear I felt each passing minute like a countdown. Call in sick, I said. Right now. David called in sick. He avoided the parking garage, and for a few hours I actually thought that might be enough. I was so naive. Marcus had been planning this for months, years maybe. My mother's death, my inheritance of the gift, David's murder that would force me into the open. Every move calculated, every contingency planned. What I didn't know, sitting in that diner thinking I'd saved one stranger's life, was that the real nightmare was just beginning.